Military Advanced. In this section we will cover some of the more advanced concepts in Victoria 2, concepts that should be new to even old Victoria 1 players. Start by selecting one of your Belgian armies. In Victoria 2, each army you build requires a pop, grouping a part of your population to recruit it from. Notice that all the brigades in your army have an icon representing a soldier next to them. This represents that this unit is connected to a particular soldier pop. Most of your units are connected to soldiers, the exception being if you mobilize your nation for total war. In Victoria 2, this connection is very real. As the army takes losses, these losses will spread to the pop it is connected to. If the pop revolt, so will its attached units. You should keep this in mind, especially if you mobilize a large part of your nation and then send them to die in the trenches. Your units also require supplies to fight. Things like small arms and canned food for armies and clipper convoys for fleets. These must be bought off the market by your government. This can be automatically done, default, or manually from the trade screen. However, hover your mouse over the supply bar to find out what this army needs and if it is getting it. Where's the supply bar? Okay, received 93% needed in the last day. That's not too bad. As we said before, should a pop with soldiers attached to it rebel, the brigades will rebel with it. If a brigade has a rebel faction icon next to its population icon, this means that its pop is a member of a faction. It is very dangerous. One way to check the status of this pop and what its issues are is to click the pop icon in the unit view to open the population view. For now, I'll just click next. Advanced production. Now we shall go into some of the more advanced concepts dealing with how goods are produced and how the profits are shared. Let's first click the production button. The artisan. Factories are not the only way we can produce goods in Victoria 2. In this tab, the production tab, you can see all goods types that are produced. Notice that some of them have a small artisan icon next to them. This means that the goods is produced by an artisan. I guess that would be this. Yeah, looks like that. Artisans don't work in a factory or RGO. Instead, they buy the goods they need on the market and turn them into other goods, which they then sell. The proceeds then go towards buying new inputs and providing the artisan with his daily needs. The artisans are the main producers of secondary goods at the start of the game, but as the game progresses, they will be squeezed out by factories that benefit from new technology. Now on to profit sharing. Much like the artisans, the factories and RGOs are dependent on selling their goods on the market and keep them running. So I don't need me to help you. Well, I mean, I won't say that. I mean, you can offer tips. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I like going through the tutorial. It's just my personal preference. But I will always take tips. Always. Let's see the difference between how much money they earn and how much money they pay for inputs, none for RGOs, as profit. This profit is then shared among the groups. The owners, aristocrats, are the owners of RGOs, and the capitalists are the owners of factories. They give a small bonus to output, and in return take a proportionally large chunk of the income. This chunk is then distributed equally among the owners in the state. The workers, farmers or laborers for RGOs, and craftsmen and clerks for factories. The workers of the particular factory or RGOs share what remains of the profit. Minimum wage reform would influence this among themselves and use this to buy their needs. Sometimes the factory needs a little help from the player. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's never, I mean, sometimes you just kind of want to hang back and watch. Factory subsidies. A factory might be showing a loss, but you may still want to keep it open. You can do this either by either to keep up production of important strategic materials, or just as a way to keep the workers happy. The money needed to keep the factory from making a loss is deducted from your treasury. Start subsidizing your cloth factory by checking its subsidies checkbox. Now to advanced budget. In this section, we will go through some of the more advanced concepts in the budget, such as gold and government employees. Let's open the budget view. Government expenses, livelihood of the bureaucracy. Most of the expense sliders are used to pay various employees of your state. All the money paid into these expenses is shared equally amongst the POPs of this type. The POPs will do their job just as well, no matter how much you pay them. However, if you don't pay them well enough, or pay them enough, they will start to leave for other jobs or even rebel. If you, on the other hand, pay them well, more people will seek employment among their ranks. This means that if you want more, say, soldiers or bureaucrats, you increase the funding for that category. But you must watch yourself so that you don't become too bloated. Let's go through your government employees. Education. Our education budget pays the clergy, representing the educators. They both teach your population to read as well as teach them the way of politics. Reducing consciousness. Having clergy present in a province will cause the local POPs to have a reduced consciousness gain. This effect is higher on the poor strata POPs. Increasing literacy. Having clergy present in a province will cause literacy to increase in a province. When the clergy reaches 49% of the population, more clergy will not make any difference. Administration. Our administrative budget pays our bureaucrats, those who make a modern-day state function. These have a number of effects. Administrative efficiency. Your national administrative efficiency affects how effective your tariffs are and how effective your social reforms are. What decides this efficiency is your technology and the percentage of your population that are bureaucrats. The number of bureaucrats you need for maximum efficiency is increased for each social reform you pass. The more social reforms there are to administer, the more bureaucrats you need. To check out how many bureaucrats you need, hover your mouse over the bureaucrat percentage. I need... How many bureaucrats do I need? Country administrator, 11.5%. For maximum administrative efficiency, we need at least 1.6%. Yeah, okay. To best use your bureaucrats, you should try to keep that at its optimal percentage. How well you manage this will depend on how you manage your administrative budget and on how happy your population is with their other job opportunities. Social spending funds your reforms. This money is not paid to any state employees, but rather to the beneficiaries of particular reforms. Unemployment subsidiaries are paid to unemployed POPs, while pensions are shared equally among all POPs. You can see Belgium's costs are 0 since we do not have any of these reforms. Next. Gold. Precious metals are a special kind of trade good in the way they are not sold on the world market, but directly converted to money and given to both their employees and the nation that controls the mine. Note that this is the only way money will ever enter the Victoria II economy, and if global production does not increase, this will have an inflationary effect. Let's investigate the loan system deeper. As we said previously in this tutorial, a nation can always take loans from the World Bank. Since we already said that gold is the only way money can enter the economy, we should say something about where the money you can borrow comes from. As POPs make money, they put some of this money into the national bank. When a country needs to borrow money, this money is taken from the different national banks, first your own and then others in order of size. If you haven't already taken a loan, do so and press next. Been there. Which nation will I not play as? I actually don't have a preference. China? Maybe? Let's see. You can see a list of countries under the Loans Taken tab. These countries are the ones that you have borrowed money from. As you pay interest or repay loans, these monies are distributed back to the pops that lent them, in order of the fleet size of the countries. Should you not be able to pay the interest you owe, you will be considered to be in default. When this happens, the nations you owe money to are able to use the power of their navy to force you to make certain economic policies enabling you to pay back. Defaulting is bad business that you should try to avoid. Oh yeah, I'm probably not going to play China. Advanced tech. In this section, we will go through the tech schools and technology categories in more detail. Let's open the tech screen. Oh, I have no desire to play as China. In the top bar, you will see several technology schools. This represents the direction our technological establishment wants to take our nation in. As you can see, Prussia is dominated by the military-industrial complex, which gives us a bonus for each military tech, but researching culture, which gives us a bonus for military tech, but researching cultural tech. Okay, I don't get that, but whatever. You can change the tech school via decision. This requires you to change the direction of your nation first. As long as military spending remains high, many of your brightest will seek a military career. Let's say a few words about industry tech. Oh, which nation do I want to play as? Honestly, I mean, I don't know, the US seems as good as any. Maybe France, UK. Industrial technology takes us further on the path to industrialization, things like railroads, mines, and factories. Note that many of the technologies are broad-based, improving the output of all factories or decreasing the input needs of all factories. Cultural technology time. Cultural technology represents the advancement of culture and philosophy in our nation. National focus in education falls under this category, but also many things that give you prestige. Both bonuses that act as multipliers on future prestige gains and one-off gains. I guess one-off. With the cultural technologies, being ahead of one's time is especially important. As the first to discover, for example, sociology gets a big prestige boost. Being runner-up is not worthless, however. For every nation that gets a certain invention of this type, the shared prestige bonus decreases a little. Let's move on to commerce. Commerce technology is the branch of technology that covers subjects like, for example, banks, economic theory, and monetary standardization. If you need to improve your taxation and administration, this is the place to look, but there are also some improvements to the industry to be found here. Navy time. Don't play as UK. This one's fairly straightforward, making your ships bigger, faster, and heavier hitting, but also giving your navies longer range, thus helping you colonize further away. Most advances in the field of armies are generalized for all troops, things like supply consumption, attack power, and organization. At the bottom of the list you can find some new units as well, namely tanks and planes. That's all for military. Now for politics. In this section we will describe a few key concepts of Victoria II politics system. First up is plurality. This is a value reflecting a sort of collective want for reform in your country, and the higher it gets, the higher the demand for reform. There are also positive effects of having a more progressive population, such as increased research points. The plurality value will increase over time, and the rate will also increase with certain technological advances and inventions. If you hover your mouse over the plurality value, you can see the current rate. Monthly change, 0.05. Revanchism, whatever that is a value that represents anger in your population over perceived injustices at the hands of foreign nations. If you lose core territory, revanchism will increase, for example, and do so till you reconquer the land or enough time passes for your people to forget. If revanchism gets high enough, this will drive your people towards jingoism and fascism. The upper house. The limiting factor in making new reforms in Victoria II is the upper house. basically the Senate. The Senate in the U.S. Depending on which parties sit in the upper house, you may or may not do social and or political reforms. Different parties have different attitudes to reforms. Fascists, for example, will not support any reforms if the ruling party is not fascist, while the conservatives would only consider reform if militancy in the country was extremely high. To the left, you can see how the current upper house of Belgium feels about reform and which ideologies are represented. 10% reactionary, 55% conservative, 35% liberal. Can't enact social reforms or political reforms. The composition of the upper house is decided based on the upper house political reform. Hover your mouse over the different options to get an idea on how your different parties feel about changing the current rules. 0% of the population want this reform. Let's see. Paying for social reforms. We institute social reforms to appease our population and make their lives easier. There is, however, a cost. Most social reforms will increase your need for bureaucrats, with two exceptions. Unemployment subsidies and pensions are paid directly to POPs to cover their basic life needs. Pensions are paid to everyone, covering up to 20% of their life needs, and unemployment subsidies are paid to the unemployed POPs. People. In this segment, we will talk a little about the population movement, ideologies, and issues. All of your POPs support various ideologies and issues, something that will change over time. We can divide the factors that drive this into two categories. Current situation. How well is the POP doing at the moment? Is the POP unemployed? And then it will support unemployment subsidies and so on. POP type. Different kinds of POPs will tend toward different directions, even in the same situation. Soldiers tend to be pro-military, capitalists tend to be liberal, and so on. These kinds of factors will work together and over time increase or decrease the POPs' support for different issues, and if enough POPs start swinging a certain way, you might have to react, either by giving them their wish, appeasing them some other way, or building a loyal military. If you hover your cursor over the pie chart next to each POP, you can see how and why their ideologies and issues move. Let's say something about demotion and promotion. In Victoria 2, you do not manually change the occupation of your POPs. Rather, some of them will choose a different occupation due to their present situation. Promotion and demotion. This is how many people choose to become something different. If they are doing really well, they will gradually try to find jobs in their own strata or higher. If they are doing poorly, they will go to the same strata or lower. If you hover your mouse over these values, you will see which factors influence this particular POP. The new profession. Here you can see which professions this POP is contemplating and the scoring for each. Hover your mouse over them to get the details. Okay, that's what they wanted me to do. Okay, oops. Gradually is the motive word for how POPs change. As a player, if you are looking to have more of a certain type, you need to make this profession more attractive, and you need people who are willing to leave their current occupation. The best way to get the hang of it is to check on some of your POPs and see which factors influence them, and then try to dampen or reinforce this. Migration. Migration in Victoria 2 work in a similar fashion to promotion, a gradual change based on the current situation of the POP. There are three kinds of migration that have different driving factors. Internal migration, migration within your country, POPs moving to where the jobs are. External migration, migration to other countries, POPs moving to nations that, for example, are more tolerant of their religion. Colonial migration, migration to and from colonies, POPs seeking a new start in a new land. For what it's worth, internal migration is just running around. Like if I move from North Carolina back to South Carolina, that's internal migration. External migration is like when Mexican immigrants come to America. Nobody attacks Persia. That might be. I might have to do that then. Like promotion, these are gradual changes, so to get an idea of why pops are coming and going, you should sample some of your pops in the screen. Oh, I'll bet. Advanced trade. Trade. We will briefly mention go through some of the concepts that should be new to old Victoria 1 players and sum up the role of the government in trading. Supply, okay, government trading. In Victoria 2, all entities such as factories and artisans trade for themselves. This limits the government's responsibility to these things. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Call to war by an ally. I can understand that. Supplying overseas provinces. To effectively use overseas provinces, you need to supply them with convoys. Each province that does not have a land connection to your capital will increase the needs of convoys. If you fail to fulfill these needs, the production efficiency of factories and RGOs in these provinces will suffer. Supplying your troops. Your troops need things like canned food and guns. If they do not get enough, their efficiency will suffer. Building things. Building things like armies and factories cost goods. When you build something, the needs are first taken from your stockpile. If something is missing, this will be added to your government needs. Capitalists building factories will buy their own goods. You only need to supply buildings built manually. Stockpiles. Governments may stockpile goods for their population to use. The reason for doing this is to maintain supply when you are under blockade. When you check the buy from stockpile checkbox, your population may buy the things in your stockpile in addition to buying from the markets, thus evading the increase. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Thus evading the increased costs associated with blockade. Government needs and managing trades. As long as your trades are automated, your government orders match your government needs exactly. When you build a new army, the trade orders will be set to cover the increased need, for example. Sometimes, however, we might need to save money. In these cases, you can click any goods in the government needs column and then uncheck the automation for that goods. After doing so, you are free to set whichever trade you like. Finally, we sum up how trading and markets work. All goods that are produced in Victoria 2 are put up for sale on the market. That is seriously like the third time that they've said that. Common market. The first round of trading that takes place does so in the common market, the market of a country and the members of the same sphere of influence. All buyers in the market first attempts to buy from here. Export to the world market. Anything that is not sold on the common market is exported to the world market. On this market, countries and their citizens buy in the order of prestige. Thus, if a good is rare prestige, it is very important. What is not sold on the world market is then lost, and producers only get paid for what they sold. Will I play as ISIS? Probably not tonight. I mean, I'm probably going to play as the US tonight. Whenever I finish this, I'm going to take a break, and then I'll probably start as the US again. In conclusion, two things are very important when trying to ensure a steady supply of goods to your nation and ensuring your people get paid. Have high prestige to get your people ahead of the queue, and make sure your common market is well stocked with the things needed to run your economy. Advanced diplomacy. In this section, we will say a few things about the specifics of war and peace, and what it means to be a great power. For this purpose, we have switched over to playing a more powerful country, Prussia. Let's move into the diplomatic interface. Great powers. Notice the 8 countries in the upper left corner. These are the great powers. You are one of them. Prussia, right here. Being a great power carries several advantages. You can make countries part of your sphere of influence, your minorities are happier, and you can build colonies. Losing your status will also greatly upset your people. Besides great powers, there are also other distinctions. Second-rank powers are able to build colonies. The uncivilized nations are not able to industrialize without first taking the decision to westernize. So how do you become a great power? Let's see. Gaining and losing. What decides if you become a great power is your score, the combined value of your prestige, military, and industrial might. As you can see, our scores put us in a good position to keep our place in the sun. Yeah. We're at 76. However, should you drop down in position, it's not too late, as you will get a warning in time and then try to fix the problem. One way to avert this disaster is, of course, war. Either a war to increase your own prestige, or to lower someone else's. Let's talk a bit about wars. Find France and declare war. Do this by clicking Declare War, selecting a war goal and clicking OK. Declare war. Choose a war goal. Humiliate. In Victoria 2, you must set a war goal for any war you start. You can only select the war goals that you see on the right side of the war declaration pop-up. Be aware that these war goals are the only thing you can demand in peace. Click the Show Wars button to check out your war goals. Adding new war goals. You are not stuck with the war goals you set from the start. However, if your people are jingoistic and you have a high war score, the war is going well, you can add more goals on the screen. Be aware, though, that if you add war goals you cannot complete, your population will be angry and your militancy will increase. Let's click back. Spheres of influence. Spheres of influence represent a country being under the influence of a greater nation. Among the practical effects of this is that they are included in your common market, making spheres of influence an effective way of ensuring your economy is well supplied. Another important effect is when trying to unify a nation. You will need to have all the core provinces of that nation in your sphere. So how do you get countries into your sphere? Let's see. There are two important tools for gaining spheres of influence. Influence and cultural current opinion. Influence is gained over time and distributed to countries you have prioritized by increasing this bar. We want to not unify Germany, but Hanover is sitting in one of their cores. Find Hanover in the country list and increase the priority. Hanover. Increase the priority. As you can see, the opinion of Hanover as of us is neutral. We need to get this up to friendly if we're going to get them into the sphere. You can see that there is a diplomatic option called Increase Opinion. If you hover over it, I have 0 of the 50 needed. Hover over it, you can see we lack influence. As we set a high priority on Hanover, however, all we have to do is wait. If other nations start trying to influence Hanover, we are not powerless to stop this. You notice actions like the Expel Advisor, for example, that will let us hurt other nations' position. We cannot unlock this action, however, until we manage to increase their opinion of us above neutral. No worries, though. So far, we are alone in this contest. As the game progresses, the battle over influence will intensify, and we might even have to use force to take a country outside of others' sphere of influence. And that's it. That is the end of the tutorial. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a